Shalom. Shalom, brothers and sisters. Giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator, the Maker of heaven and earth. My name is Yeshaya Yisrael, of the tribe of Dan of the nation of Israel. We do not intend for this presentation really to be long, considering the name of it. Very short presentation. Brothers and sisters, the purpose in this, as I'm going to read inside of the description, is dedicated to help spread truth that is not suppressed by many concerning the reality of slavery. While it is not a happy topic, nor presented as if this is whole of Black history, we do not want to have the idea of minimalists to take roots in the future generation. The idea that slavery in the United States and that in Colonial America, as taught in colleges, is a myth. In the book I wrote, cited in this video, thank you for subscribing if you did, and if you didn't, please do so, thanking you in advance, cited a book called From Slavery to Freedom by Moss, M-O-S-S, will be challenged on this and other platforms. What I'm saying, brothers and sisters, is the concept, the ideology of saying that slavery is a myth and the silly ways in which people attempt to present such a matter will be presented consistently on this channel and in the books of Brother Wrights. I ask you all to subscribe to the channel. More Yeshaya Torah Lessons, More Yeshaya History Lessons, More Yeshaya History Lessons 2. I ask you all to purchase the books that we're going to be going over. Again, we do not intend for this to be long. Brothers and sisters, I want to, on a human level, give due respect to my lady, Sarai Michaela, who encourages me. I want to give due respect to the congregation I'm a part of, Shomrei Habrit. Much respect to the brother Mora Yiftach and his family. I want to give due respect, brothers and sisters, to the congregation, Sha'arei Shemayim, brothers and sisters, and much respect to Nasi Keskuyahu ben Yehuda. I want to give due respect to my Hebrew teacher, Kohen Mikael, and may he rest in peace, Moreh Mishael. I want to give due respect, brothers and sisters, to my history teacher, may he rest in peace, Chief Simeon ben Yehuda. So, brothers and sisters, again, as pointed out, we do not intend for this to be long. Nonetheless, brothers and sisters, we want to, with the time allotted, get into this particular matter because it has been presented as if slavery is a myth. Shalom, redemption, and thank you for getting the book that you did get. I appreciate the support. Let us get into the matter that we're speaking about, brothers and sisters, and giving honor to the Most High. Shalom. This short video is dedicated to help set a record straight. Recently, there have been people stating that the AST, Atlantic Slave Trade, is not true or that it is told in reverse. While I do not state that there were no ships going from west to east, we want it known that yes, there were ships that went east to west. Brothers and sisters, in the book called Black Indians by William Lawrence Katz, K-A-T-Z, pardon, the author speaks about the Atlantic slave trade that went from the Western Hemisphere to the Eastern. So no, we do not deny that it did go east, but we also, brothers and sisters, want to point out about the one going west. If your particular studies focus on the slave trade that went east, or the Barbary trade, or the trade with the Chinese as captives, then that's where your portion lies. That's where your portion resides at. It is tacky, it is disrespectful, actually, to try to tell somebody on how he or she should focus on in doing a presentation or teaching. If that's where your spirit is, then follow such. Next slide, please. Thank you. Books of interest on the subject. The book that you see there on the left side, brothers and sisters, is called From Assyria to America. The book is over 300 pages. You can go on Amazon and get the book. All right. You can also get the book Deuteronomy 28, verses 15 to 68. These books, the one on the left side, From Assyria to America, was written and published in 2020. The book on the right side, Deuteronomy 28, verses 15 to 68, History Untold to the Masses, has 2 appendix attached to it. You understand? And what we want to point out, brothers and sisters, in that particular case, is there's a book sale going on for those interested. You can reach me at 908-587-4841, the number that you see going across the screen. So instead of getting the books online, 2 for $40, you can get it directly from me, 2 for $30. And brothers and sisters, I do not receive payment and then not give the books to the people. That would be called theft. We don't do that. Next slide, please. The matter with Mississippi and Texas. Now, on the left side, we're going to read this, and it says the following. Our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery, the greatest material interest in the world. That is from the Mississippi Secession Convention of the 1860s. And in it, it says, our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery. Now, why does this become important? Because there are those who attempt to state that, only 5% of the people in the South had slaves. Then how do you have a position that is thoroughly done for something that is only for 5% of the population? That's something that we want to point out. It's also been stated, not reading what Mississippi and Texas and other places wrote as to why they seceded from the Union and formed what is then called the Confederate States of America, the CSA. You can go into the archives and read upon the matter we're about to read on the right side that Texas stated, which kind of surprised me when I read it. In all non-slave holding states, in violation of that good faith and comity, which should exist between entirely distinct nations, the people have formed themselves into a great sectional party, now strong enough in numbers to control the affairs of each own states, based upon the unnatural feeling of hostility to these southern states and their beneficent, and patriarchal system of African slavery, proclaiming the debasing doctrine of the equality of all men. Now, of course, we know, brothers and sisters, that the concept of saying all men are created equal was stated by Thomas Jefferson, who's going to be discussed in this presentation. And this comes from a declaration of the causes which impelled the state of Texas to secede from the federal union. This was stated, brothers and sisters, in the 1860s. You understand? And one of the things we want to point out in that particular case is Texas was a slave state, Mississippi was a slave state. And we're going to go over, brothers and sisters, some of the slave states. For people in states to form declarations, it shows it was not a matter that they thought was to be played with. It shows, brothers and sisters, that they were serious about what they were doing and what they were talking about. It shows, brothers and sisters, that they were on the wicked, their A game concerning this kind of matter. The South, for those who do know, during the Civil War, was fighting to preserve slavery and to have it expand. The North could care less at first, or really later, about the destruction of slavery, but just didn't want it to expand. J.A. Rogers, Joel A. Rogers, in his book, 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro, speaks upon that particular matter. You understand how certain states freed black people and Lincoln ordered them back into slavery. So we already know that Lincoln was two-faced, as pointed out in the book, for those who are interested, the book, Deuteronomy 28, 15 to 68, which was advertised on this channel. So brothers and sisters, if Mississippi is saying in their secession convention that their position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery and state that it is the greatest material interest in the world, take that and couple it, if you will, with what Texas is saying, that these states have gotten so much power to where they can govern themselves and now want to paint the South as if the South is bad with the weird statement of all men being created equal, is essentially what we're reading, paraphrase on the right side of this slide right here. So no, slavery was not a light matter. Next slide, please. Dates, states left the Union, and presidents who had slaves. South Carolina, December 1860. Mississippi, January 1861. Florida, January 1861. Alabama, January 1861. Georgia, February 1861. Louisiana, January 1861. Texas, February 1861. Virginia, April 1861. Arkansas, May 1861. Tennessee, June 1861. North Carolina, May 1861. So you already can see there that there are 11 states, and these 11 states formed what is called in history the Confederate States of America. So brothers and sisters, this is not something that was a light matter. These states would not have separated themselves from the country if it was just only 5%, if it was just only the rich, if it was only the elite who had slaves. They would have separated themselves from the rich and the elite, or vice versa. So brothers and sisters, we know in history of slavery that there were poor white people who had slaves and sometimes gained riches by the trading of slaves. You understand? So, brothers and sisters, let's look at the right side of this. Washington, 317 slaves. Jefferson, actually over 600 slaves. Madison, 100 slaves. Monroe, 75 slaves. Jackson, 200 slaves. Burren, 1 slave. Harrison, 11. Tyler, 70. Polk, 25. Taylor, 150. Johnson, 8. Grant, 5. Some say 7. Brothers and sisters, what is the point in going over this in this particular case? Because there were 12 presidents that's listed there that had slaves. Now, some people try to state, and is not trying to be funny, this may be the prelude to a minimalist matter. Well, Adams didn't have slaves, the second president and the sixth president. But brothers and sisters, when the second president, Adams, spoke with King George III of England, he did not denounce the slave trade or slavery either. You understand? And even as pointed out in the movie, Amistad, his son, who was the sixth president, you understand, he stated that he is neither friend nor foe of the abolitionists. He will not at first help the people with the matter of the Amistad matter, for those who know the history in that particular case. So what can we say of the Adams in that particular case, who were not slaveholders? Your silence is admission of guilt. The fact that you did not speak against it, like people know about the police, who know do certain wicked things, but they have their blue wall of silence so they don't talk. You are in part as guilty in such, especially since they say you can call in anonymous and you still don't, when you know what you can and should do. So, brothers and sisters, getting into this particular case, there is no way that you're going to have Mississippi, Florida, Alabama from January 9th, the 10th, and the 11th. There's like within 3 days, three different whole states that left the Union. And we read earlier what Mississippi stated about such. You understand? So the states left the Union and presidents who had slaves. Now let's point something out, brothers and sisters, about this. Washington was born in Virginia, as was Jefferson, as was Madison, as was Monroe. You understand? So let's look at that. So you have Washington born in Virginia, Jefferson born in Virginia, Madison born in Virginia, and Monroe born in Virginia. So all of them born in Virginia, brothers and sisters. What can we say about Virginia? Virginia was the first colony, brothers and sisters. You understand? Of the 13 colonies, correct me if I'm wrong. And when this particular matter, brothers and sisters, is pointed out, we want to have it to be known that if these men were born in Virginia, brothers and sisters, let's just deal with just these four right here real quick, even though I know I promised this is going to be a short presentation, right? And in total, between them all, there's over 1,000 slaves. And brothers and sisters, Washington, Jefferson, Madison, and Monroe all lived in the same time frame of each other. How then can we think that it was a small matter regarding slavery? Did the South think that slavery was a myth? Absolutely not. We see in their declarations on why they left the Union, brothers and sisters. Now, I want to state this sidebar. This is not to degrade our brothers and sisters, family in the South. I have relatives in the South. I'm in the North, and I'm not going to act like New York was not a slave state. You understand? I'm not going to sit there and act like John Wilkes Booth relatives are from New York, as far as the woman whom he was going to be married to relatives. You understand? And we all know what John Wilkes Booth was about in his diary that said African slavery is the best thing that happened in America. You understand? And he ain't lived to be 30 years old, according to some, and then some say he lived to be over 60. But my point nonetheless is this, regarding that. If we take the story that John Wilkes Booth, who assassinated Lincoln, did not live to be over 30, that he didn't go down into another state and changed his name to John St. Helen and all of that, that's a whole other matter with conspiracy or this or that. Let's just accept the story given that he was killed in 1865 in a barn, right? Or shot in a barn and died later on in 1865. That means he wasn't 30 years old yet. Who taught John Wilkes Booth, whose father is not even from the United States, that, quote, African slavery is the best thing that happened to America? If slavery was such a thing that wasn't so big in America. You understand what's being portrayed in the question, right? That for somebody whose dad is not from the United States and who did not live to be 30 years old, where would John Wilkes Booth get the thought, concept, the ideology that, quote, African slavery is the best thing that happened to America? You understand? Let's go on, brothers and sisters. Jackson, born in South Carolina. Martin Van Buren, born in New York. President Harrison, born in Virginia. President Tyler, born in Virginia. So let's look, brothers and sisters. All right, you have Tyler that we see right here. If we use this, right, laser pointer, Tyler having 150 slaves. No, sorry, Taylor. Tyler having 70. I stand corrected on my own notes. I pointed there saying Tyler, but I pointed to Taylor. I meant to point to Tyler. Tyler having 70 slaves, right? Let's look at that right there. And he's in Virginia. Polk, brothers and sisters, had 25, and he's from North Carolina. You understand? Martin Van Buren having 1 slave, and he was from New York. So what can we gather? That the northern people were not that far-fetched in having slavery. One of the things that Martin Van Buren was threatened with, for those who do know regarding American history, during his presidency, was that the South was already talking about separating or seceding from the North. Not too long, brothers and sisters, after the matter with Buren and Harrison, you had what they call Bleeding Kansas. And that was about a matter of slavery, when an actual senator was attacked, an actual government agent, and I use the word agent as meaning one who works for something, like a Lebanon agent, you understand. And he was attacked. Slavery was not a small thing for them to react in such matter. You understand? So you have Taylor, born out of Virginia, Johnson, born out of North Carolina, and Grant, born out of Ohio. So let's look at these last 3. Taylor, we know, is the, brothers and sisters, father-in-law of Jefferson Davis. Jefferson Davis, correct me if I'm wrong, is from Mississippi. He was the president of the Confederacy. And his vice president, Alexander Stephens, was from Georgia. We already read what Mississippi stated about slavery. We already went over what John Wilkes Booth, whose father is not even from the United States, stated about slavery. And we already know about the matter when Lincoln had to try to make sure, let's not sit there and talk about the destruction of slavery totally. And there's a reason for that, because he had Delaware fighting for the North, Maryland, Kentucky, and Missouri. Those 3 places were slave states that was fighting on the side of the North, the border states as they were called, again, being Delaware, Maryland, Kentucky, and Missouri. He felt and knew anything that if he would have just sat there and just said slavery is going to be done totally like that, that those states would have joined on to the Confederacy, and then the North really would have lost in that case. Now we know about France being two-faced and giving what they call the bullets. I forgot the exact calling of it, to both the North and the South, brothers and sisters. You understand? And we know that some people talk about the banks being behind the Civil War. So let's take that understanding that the South wanted to expand slavery. The North just wanted to keep slavery in place. And the banks played both the North and the South to fight one another for their own quote unquote purpose. Slavery ending legally was a result of that. So even if the North and the South did not go in with the populated thought of why the Civil War was, brothers and sisters, elders included, there still was a result that perhaps neither one of them had wanted or expected. See, the North didn't want Black people to come up there and take their jobs. You understand? And the South wanted to remain superior in certain aspects and just have it to where, okay, just slavery with that. Why do I point out the matter with Johnson and Grant? Johnson being Andrew Johnson and Ulysses S. Grant both being slave owners. because Grant was the 18th president, while Johnson, by default, after the assassination of Lincoln, was the 17th president. Do I personally believe that Johnson was behind the death of Lincoln? From what I studied and read, no. Like some people do state he was. You understand? Do I personally believe that John Wilkes Booth worked with the president of the Confederacy? I believe that. That's for another subject as we go over in history. But why am I up here with a kente cloth and a head covering on as a said black man, knowing myself as an Israelite, talking about this stuff? Is because we need to be the light. We need to bring this out to the people. There are two things that we want to point out. Be knowledgeable and be teachable. You understand? Our book, the Tanakh, the said Old Testament, talks about Nebuchadnezzar, who's not an Israelite. It talks about Sennacherib, who's not an Israelite. So why will we read our book, our record that speaks of the leaders of other nations, and then be so willfully benighted and not even trying to be a tyro in these particular studies? Why will we want to shun this kind of matter? Oh, that doesn't matter, and so forth and so on. When Ezra and the scribes who put the Tanakh that we have together understood why it was necessary to mention Sennacherib, why it was necessary to mention Tiglath-Pileser, why it was necessary to mention Taharqa, why it was necessary to mention Necho, why it was necessary to mention Esarhaddon. Thus, brothers and sisters, you can see why this book here, From Assyria to America, Tiglath-Pileser as well as Esarhaddon were leaders of the Assyrians. You understand? Nebuchadnezzar and Nabonidus were leaders of the Babylonians. You understand? Cyrus and Darius were leaders of the Persians. So why will we not think that understanding what is going on in history is important, written in our scriptures, that we hold near and dear to ourselves? But then some, no disrespect intended, when we go over this history right here, it's like, oh, that doesn't matter. How does Tiglath-Pileser, who did not worship the Holy One of Israel, matter in our book and mentioned in our book perpetually? But Andrew Jackson is just to be treated like, oh, he was just a person in history and he had slaves and died. No, brothers and sisters, read about this matter. In the book that I wrote, Egypt Talking Writing, giving a cheat sheet, if we will, Madison and Monroe, presidents, one having 100 or so slaves and Monroe having 75 slaves. They lived during an era in Virginia where both Madison and Monroe were from, during the era of Gabriel Prosser. Gabriel Prosser, brothers and sisters, if we will, spoke upon us being the Israelites, and he was, correct me if I'm wrong, I would say assassinated, they say killed, in the year 1800. See how that may become important? Look up Gabriel Prosser. Now, let's continue in this particular case. Conclusion. I can be reached at 908-587-4841. This short presentation is now concluded. The purpose was to show in reason that slavery is not a myth. The fact that we have names that are not of our people in lingual matters show that slavery was not a myth. How do you get the name Chavis, Hutchinson? How do you get the name, brothers and sisters, Robertson, and you're a black man? How do you get the name Spearman, and you're a black man? How do you get the last name Miller? The last name, brothers and sisters, Smith. Those names don't go back to anything lingual of Afro-Asiatic linguistics. It doesn't even go into Hamitic linguistics, knowing that Israelites picked up some of the Hamitic languages and traveling after Rome did what they did in the 1st century CE. Again, want more history on that? Get the book that was cited, From Assyria to America. The fact that the South fought so hard to maintain and expand slavery shows that it was not a light matter. The fact Lincoln did not want to lose the quote border states of Delaware, Maryland, Kentucky, Missouri that were slave states fighting for the Union showed that it was not a light matter. There was a lot of politics, brothers and sisters, going on in that particular realm. So we cannot, again, brothers and sisters, we cannot attempt to portray the matter as if it's a light thing, as if it's a thing that doesn't matter, brothers and sisters, because it most certainly does. That we are to act like something is to be treated on the low when it should not be. Shalom redemption. I see that you typed in Virginia. I don't know, maybe you're saying that I spelled it wrong in a PowerPoint. I'm not sure, my brother. But if you're still on the line and able to comment, let me know. And of course, much respect to my lady Sarah Michaela Yisrael. Shalom, sweetie. Getting back and closing out, brothers and sisters. I can be reached at 908-587-4841. This presentation, according to what I'm seeing, went over a little of 30 minutes. I did not intend for it to be longer than 15. My bad. I did not mean to lie, LOL, in the statement of calling it a short video on the matter. But I wanted to go over and show some pinpoint matters in this kind of case. Brothers and sisters, subscribe to the channel, please. Subscribe to the congregation Shomrei Habrit's channel. I'm going to type that in here, brothers and sisters, for edification purposes. All right. You can find that channel, brothers and sisters, online. And you all have a great week. Excellent day. Most I be with you all. I'm open to constructive criticism. Shalom.